Hi, this is Frank Shamrock, MMA legend, UFC superstar, and you're listening to MMA Crip Fighting Talk.
Gregory Stone, MMAcrip.com. On today's show, I'll be speaking with MMA legend, the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Ken recently signed to compete in a bare knuckle boxing match against bare knuckle boxing legend James Quinn McDonough. That takes place April 2015 in the UK. With that, I'd like to welcome into the show Mr. Ken Shamrock. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, Ken. Okay, Ken, last time I spoke to you, all signs were sort of pointing to you moving away from the fight game, especially in terms of getting in the cage and actually competing anyway. Also, I think you've sort of took many fans, especially MMA fans, by surprise with announcing that you're going to compete in a bare knuckle boxing fight. So for the first question, I'd like to ask Ken, why bare knuckle boxing and why actually now?
Well, I say, why not? I mean, anybody that really knows me and knows who I am and knows where I came from, bare knuckle boxing is basically how I started. I came from the Pancrase organization where we didn't wear any gloves, open hand strikes, and bare knuckle to the body. And then when the No Holds Barred came out, UFC, it was bare knuckle. So probably the first about 7 years of my career, I trained bare knuckle in the gym. So I have always made sure people understood where I stand on gloves. And even when they brought it into the MMA, which is MMA now, and took it from No Holds Barred in MMA, and they put gloves on people, I was the one that told them that, listen, you're not making this any more safer. In fact, you're making it more dangerous for the person getting punched, and the person that's punching, you're making it safer. And you're also cutting out the pure submissions with the rear naked choke and heel hooks and all the things that go along with submission, because the glove is a little bit bulkier and it allows people to grab and block. So I've never been a fan of it, but I understood why they were doing it. So when people ask me, well, why are you going to bare knuckle? And I always say, why not? This is who I am. This is how I started, and I loved it. And I remember back in the earlier days when we first started out, people were always screaming, stand up, fight like a man. And they hated when people went to the ground because it was boring. Until now, they've been so educated on submission, they understand it now. But now they've forgotten their roots. The fans have forgotten their roots. Their roots was mano a mano, two guys stand up and get after each other, and that's what they originally were drawn to when the No Holds Barred and UFC came out. That's what that drew them to this competition. So we're just basically going back to the roots and saying, you know what? Now we're going to give it to you. We're going to stand up and fight like men.
Well, I asked that question, Ken, because obviously most fans know you from the UFC and obviously MMA. So, but you mentioned about you trained for bare knuckle a long time ago. Could you tell us exactly how you trained for bare knuckle a long time ago, and how will you train for this fight? Because obviously it's bare knuckle. Would you be training with hand wraps on? Are you going to be using boxing gloves, possibly MMA gloves? I would probably think that's the best.
Well, we used to train in the gym, and we would, especially on the ground, when we could do ground and pound, and we would have guys wearing these headgear with face masks on them, and we would strike to the head for us to get trained up to be able to strike from different positions on the ground. But we protect the guy that we're hitting by putting a head cage on him, So, and even to stand up, these guys would wear these bubble mask or these screens on their face. So we were able to strike them.
Now, I don't know much about James McDonough in terms of what he's achieved in bare knuckle boxing. I know he's billed as a legend, and obviously you don't get that title unless you really accomplish something in your sport. So I wanted to ask you, Ken, what do you know about James McDonough?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about him. I do have seen some stuff on him, and anytime anybody does, I don't care whether it's table tennis. If somebody goes undefeated, there's obviously, every time you win, there's somebody else that wants to come up and challenge you. And pretty soon you get a reputation, and then these people keep coming out to want to beat you. So competition always gets a little bit better. I take nothing from him. This guy, bare knuckle, he fought different guys, and he was always being challenged by different talent. and he was able to stay undefeated. I don't know, like I said, a whole lot about him, but I do know that he deserves the respect of being undefeated and being able to take this bare knuckle boxing at its rawest point and be able to stay where he was at and make a name for himself. So I take nothing from him, but I also have seen film on him, and I think he has some great ability. But at the same time, because of the kind of caliber of people that were doing bare knuckle at the time, I don't think that he was able to really be challenged in the technical area with footwork, with hand speed, with power, and with punching combinations.
Yeah.
So I see the opportunity to be able to go in, and I'm looking for a great fight. I'm not looking for a one-round knockout. If it happens, I'll take it. But I'm looking for it to be a great fight. He has a good chin. He's a tough competitor, and I'm looking for this fight to be a great fight for the fans and to put bare knuckle boxing where it should be, and that's at the top.
Before we move forward with your fight with James McDonough, I wanted to ask you, we just touched about the gloves. Obviously, you mentioned all the cons about wearing MMA gloves. Obviously, it stops you getting in the chokes because obviously you can hold on to the gloves, etc. But what's the pros of wearing MMA gloves?
Well, the pros of wearing a glove is that you get to be able to swing as hard as you want and hit him anywhere you want in the head, knock him out. And the other thing is, too, is if you're not that great at submissions, when you go to the ground, you're able to use that glove to your advantage by being able to stop people from submitting you by grabbing their glove. And then on the ground, you're able to punch them in the back of the head, the side of the head, wherever you want on the ground, and you're not going to hurt your hand either. So it is a huge advantage for someone who really likes to strike a lot.
Speaking of the gloves, Ken, how much did it really protect your hands? Because obviously this bare knuckle boxing fight, you're going to be wearing hand wraps, I'd assume. Obviously your knuckles are going to be unprotected. But you still got hand wraps to protect you against broken hands. Obviously it doesn't fully protect you from broken hands, it just helps. But are you doing anything in this bout to potentially strengthen your hands to possibly stop them getting broken early on in the fight? Because obviously that must be a big concern of yours.
Listen, the way you stop from breaking your hands is by making sure that you don't throw stupid punches.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I like no gloves, is because it makes you stay disciplined and be patient and wait for your opportunity to throw a hard punch. But you get a lot of cowboys out there now who get to put gloves on their hands and they throw all kinds of punches and they knock people out and they get to go into the Hall of Fame. To take those gloves off, they wouldn't come close to the Hall of Fame because they're not accurate enough, they don't have enough direction on their striking, and they're not patient. So it really does take away when you talk about the pure strength of submission and the pure strength of somebody who's very technical and knows how to direct their punches. You take away anybody that's very accurate and very athletic to do that. You don't give them any credit because you put a glove on them. So I personally, I know how to protect my hand. I've fought in it. So it's about accurate punches and being patient and waiting for your chance to throw a hard one.
Do you think MMA gloves are there just for the legalisation, really? You know, just for the commission's sake? Because I don't really think the 4-ounce gloves really protect your hands all that well. And really, they cause a lot of cuts, to be honest with you. I know you can get cuts with bare knuckle too. Obviously, bone to thin bit of skin. But obviously, the slicing effect of the leather causes a lot of cuts too. Do MMA gloves really protect your hands that well, Ken?
Well, I mean, they could break your hand, no question. And I thought when they didn't allow you to wrap your hands under the glove, I thought there's still a big chance of you breaking your hand. You know, you had to be a little bit more careful, but it's like I said, it still protected the hand. But now that you can wrap your hand under the glove, the chances of breaking your hand are very rare. You got to wrap them with gauze and tape, and then put that glove over the top of it. So it's real difficult to break your hand nowadays.
Now, I don't know any of the rules to bare knuckle boxing fighting. I know how the Irish Travellers do it. Obviously, they go in a field, they carry on fighting until somebody either gets knocked out or gives best. That's basically saying I've had enough, I don't want to do anymore. Do you know what the rules are to your bout with James Quinn?
Well, as far as I know, there's 3 rounds. They're 5 minutes each, and I don't know all the rules yet, but I do know this. I want to make sure that it was very clear that you were not able to take your knuckles. That it's a bare knuckle fight, and from my understanding, that is true. And I believe, and I'm not sure, but I believe that they have a new design on a ring that we'll be fighting in, and I don't know what that is yet, but I'm sure they'll let people know when it's time.
That sounds interesting. Well, I do know about bare knuckle boxing. They really have tried legitimising it. You know, they've introduced belts, etc. It's not so much in fields nowadays. They get a crowd together. So it's definitely taking steps forward, but there is a concern of biting. There is a lot of biting in bare knuckle boxing bouts. Is this a concern for you, Ken? Obviously, James Quinn, he seems like a professional. He seems against that sort of thing, but is being bitten a bit of a concern for you?
Of course, it's a concern for me. I mean, I'm going into something that he's educated in, that he's fought in for a long time, and I've been away from it for a while, and so absolutely. So the way that I get rid of those concerns is through training and getting prepared properly.
Now, we know that you trained with open hands before in the past. You did pancrase, etc. You've obviously been in bar fights, I would assume. But just how much research did you do about bare knuckle boxing before you got into it? Obviously, you know, you're not afraid to have a scrap with bare knuckles and get into a street fight, etc. But just how much research did you do just to make sure you fully knew what you was getting into, Ken?
Well, first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to research on whether or not there was an interest for people, because I'm not going to go into something that is not going to be entertaining for the fans. And the more that I started looking on social media sites and different websites and out in the world out there, it reminded me of the days of NHB and UFC when it came out, where people were just dying to find something on there where it showed people doing this. And that's where BKB was, other than when they tried to trick people and put a glove on and cut the knuckles out that were an inch deep in a glove and you never touch anybody. But the real bare knuckle, people were trying to find this stuff, and it seems like there's an underground following, a huge underground following, that people want to watch this. And so once I recognized that, I started doing some research on it and started finding out different opportunities. And then the name, I got the opponent, and I did some research on him, and I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity. I think we could really do something this with my reputation and with his reputation. We can bring this thing to the forefront and give people what they want to see without having to look for it on social media. We bring it out on pay-per-view.
Now, obviously, Ken, back in the early UFC days, you was known as mainly a submission fighter. That's the way the old UFC built you as. But obviously, growing up on the streets, etc., was you sort of a bare knuckle fighter before you became a submission fighter? Sort of like a street fighter. So this is sort of natural to you in a way, because we all sort of begin as a street fighter, so to speak.
Yeah, I was a tough kid. I grew up in group homes. I got into a lot of fights on the street. I even got into paid fights on the street. We call it squatting. And so, I'm familiar with this. And that's the reason why I made my move towards Tank Grace organization over in Japan, and then also into the MMA world, or at the time, Knowles Bard in the UFC at the time, because it was something that I was already used to. And it was something that I was driven towards, and it was entertaining to me. And so, that's just me. It's part of my DNA. And so I have an opportunity to do it again with something different and be able to bring this to the forefront, because people want to watch two guys be able to go at one another without any advantage to one or the other guy. It's just two guys stand up and go at it, and let's see what happens. And to me, that's also very, very challenging for me, and I love that.
Before you signed to face James Quinn McDonough, there was a lot of rumours for literally a good 6 weeks of you facing Decca Heggie. Could you tell us what happened to that proposed bout, please?
Well, we started on down that road, and of course, I was interested in the BKB because of the following we had. But the opponent, he looked like a tough guy. He looked like he was up and coming, but it just didn't seem like he would. He had the experience that I wanted, that I needed the other opponent to have for me to be able to challenge and be able to make a fight out of it. And so it just kind of lost interest, and we walked away from it. And then they came back with another name, and we did research, and we agreed upon that one. And yeah, nothing against Decca Heggie. I think he's going to be a great fighter down the road, but he just doesn't have those credentials yet to step in the ring and be able to carry a main event fight like this at this magnitude of what we're going to be trying to do on a world stage, and is trying to bring this to the forefront for guys like Decca Heggie and other people on the undercard that want to someday be able to make a living at doing bare knuckle fighting.
Now, this is sort of going back to something I spoke to you roughly about 16 months ago. Now, when all the rumours were swirling about you facing Decca Heggie, obviously I checked out Decca Heggie's Facebook, and obviously you get the comments from the fans. Now, a lot of the comments were aimed towards you pulling out your fight with Ian Freeman, or Ken won't show, Ken will take the money and run just like he did against Ian Freeman. Did you sort of expect these type of comments with your fighting in the UK?
Well, if we're talking about Ian Freeman, I mean, to me, it's kind of idiotic for anybody to even be going down that road. You're talking to a guy who was a world champion in 2 different countries, defended his title 4 or 5 times over again, fought anybody who they put in front of him throughout the world, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And then I got a guy who was an average fighter who probably became famous in his own town because he was one of the first ones to do it, but never really accomplished the goals that he set out to, which was be a world champion. He never did that. I did it many, many times over again in 2 different countries, and I'm ducking him. People, please stop listening to the hype.
Well, obviously, you told your side of the story. You was just protecting yourself. They didn't meet your demands, which is fair enough. But have those rumours and accusations, even though you give your side of the story, have those rumours and accusations sort of hurt your reputation in the UK? Did it affect any negotiations in the future? Because obviously, you've been a commentator for BAMA. Obviously, you was arranging these bare knuckle boxing bouts.
No, you know what, man? Listen, I'm a business guy, and I don't put anything on what other people say or do. I'm an honest guy. I live that way. My contracts state that. If you hold up to your end of the bargain, then we've got no problem. If you don't, we do. And if there was an issue with me backing out of a fight or creating a problem with the fight, I would have gotten sued. But that's just not the case now, is it? Because legally, they were the ones that screwed up and not me. Otherwise, they'd have me in court.
That's very true, Ken. Well, speaking of BAMA, I would have always thought that you would have fought for them. Obviously, they're very popular. They was on Channel 5 Star, really doing good things. I really felt, because you had a good relationship with them, that you would actually compete for them next if you did fight in the UK. Obviously, you swerved us with this bare knuckle boxing bout. Was there ever any talks of you fighting for BAMA, potentially?
No, No, there was no talk about that. I mean, no, they mentioned it and asked about an interest in a fight, and I said, of course, but no one ever really came to me with any solid offers.
Well, I mentioned about Facebook with Decca Heggie. Obviously, I checked out your Facebook. I sort of noticed that your daughter, Rebecca, she's fully pumped up for this bout with James Quinn. I wanted to know, what's your family's support been like? Obviously, you shocked a few fans going into bare knuckle boxing. Just what did your family make of you competing in bare knuckle boxing? Obviously, their support must be key to your preparation, and obviously, you meant a lot to you going into this bout.
Well, I'll tell you what, the main thing is my family supports me. They know who I am. They know this is what my DNA is. This is what I love to do. And I've always had the support of them. And also the fans that know me, they know this is who I am. I live for this stuff. I keep myself healthy. I stay in great shape. And I'm always ready to take on a new challenge. And these are people that know me, not people that don't know me and that people throw out different accusations. These are people that know me.
Yeah. Well, I do notice that you've began training for this bout already, Ken. You mentioned that you was a little sore. Now, you are in good shape, Ken. You're always in good shape. You stay in shape. But there's a big difference between fighting shape and just working out shape. How's your body feeling right now, Ken? Is it sort of adjusting to the workouts now?
Sore. Very, very sore. Yeah, and you're absolutely correct. There is a huge difference between just being in shape and being in fighting shape. And so we've gone through these preparations. I've had 4 months to prepare for this, which is what I wanted, because I want to go in there and be able to put on the best performance I possibly can, and be able to not have to go through the same crap I went through before the last time I tried to do something in England with a fight. So I made sure all the contract stuff was done, all the agreements was done before I ever mentioned a word, because I didn't need the same kind of crap happening. So we made sure we did things above board, and that everybody knew what was going on, and that there'd be no secrets and no surprises.
Is training a little easier than what it is for MMA? Because obviously in MMA you have to train everything. So is it a little easier on you just to train the stand-up aspects, just totally work on one thing and focus on one thing? Has that been a little bit nicer for you, Ken?
I don't know. I don't know if you'd say it was easier. I mean, obviously it's. I mean, you have to study so much, but boy, I tell you what, the intensity of the sparring and getting a fresh guy in all the time, and then trying to work in bare knuckle and not get hurt. I mean, it's not easy, and it's tough and it's hard. But like I said, it's just different. It's more focused.
One last thing on the fight, Ken. Where will you be training for this? Will it be the Lions Den?
Well, right now I'm in Modesto doing strength conditioning for the first 6 weeks, and then the second 2.5 months I'll be in San Diego doing sparring up there.
Just changing gears, 2 more questions there, Ken, to wrap up the interview. The Shamrock Slam drink is out, so I believe. Is that available for fans to purchase now?
Right now, no. We're actually in the process of doing some fundraising for marketing and advertising. So it's not. We can't really get it out there right now because we're raising the funds for that to do the marketing and advertising. That's why you see the social media stuff out there with the commercials and the contact page on my website for people to come in and see if they want to help get this thing out there. So that's where we're at now. We're in the process of fundraising.
Okay, last question, Ken. CM Punk, you know how to bring him up with you being a former pro wrestler, of course. Now, I don't want to ask you how you think he's going to do, because I know you've probably been asked that millions of times, but I want to ask you how you was received, because he's taken a lot of heat for the MMA fans. I wanted to know how the pro wrestling fans accepted you. I understand that you did some catch wrestling and you did some pro wrestling before MMA, so you might have been received well in the locker room, but how did the pro wrestling fans accept you?
Well, I think they were a little bit, they obviously accepted me. They were interested to see what it is and who it is I was. And once I was in the ring and my performance, once they saw what I could do, I was accepted, no problem. And I think that's what CM Punk, it's not about whether or not what they think about him right now, because I think everybody's going to be wondering what he can do. And once he does it, then they'll accept him. If he doesn't, he's got a long road to toe to get back into it if he doesn't perform well in his first fight.
Okay, rounding out the show, Ken, is there anything you'd like to say to your fans before we leave?
Yeah, please go to my website, KenShamrock.com. I've got my blog on there every week. I am keeping it posted up with pictures, my training pictures, sometimes my diet, my training workout. And you want to keep following me on my road to this bare knuckle fight, KenShamrock.com. Go to my blog, go to the contact page, and you can also leave your input there. I read it all. So come on and join this little tour of mine, man.
I read your first blog, Ken. That was a really good read, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed that. Okay, Ken, thank you very much for the time.
All right, man. Thank you, and God bless.
Okay, from the MMA Crip Fighting Talk Show, thank you for watching.